welcome back to my channel. Back again with another Bible study episode. If you haven't watched other videos, make sure you go watch other videos. The two scriptures I'm going to be reading are Proverbs 17 and Genesis 22:1. So those are the ones I'm going to cover in this video. Now you guys have seen the title, and the title is Why God Gives Us Tests. Now every time you look in the Bible, there's so many different stories of people going through long suffering before they got to where they need to get to. And I feel like the reason God gives us that long suffering and why it's a fruit of the Holy Spirit is because God knows if we're not ready, if He gives us something before we're ready for it, we're just going to mess it up. Similar to the story of the Israelites. It took these men long to get there because they just weren't ready. They weren't ready. It's the same way how if a 16-year-old asks for a car, no license, no theory, I'm not going to buy a car for them to drive because they're just going to wreck it. They've not been practiced. They don't have the skill set required to do it. They need to learn. And for most of us, that's long suffering. When you're there paying your money for your driving lessons, the cash loss is suffering. So it's the same kind of principles in just all of life, I feel like. In Proverbs 17:3, it reads, "The crucible for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests the heart." Now, it's very crucial for you guys to understand what a crucible, a furnace actually are. So when you have a silver coin, a crucible essentially is what can melt the coin. So the silver coin you have is what can melt it. Then the furnace, of course, you guys know when you put gold into a furnace, it melts it. Now, I want you guys to think, when you melt down silver and you melt down gold, what's the next thing you're able to do with it? Now, I'm just gonna give you 5 seconds just to ponder and think about that. When you melt down silver and you melt down gold, what is the purpose of melting it down? When they were there creating their swords, even the common knife and fork you use today, even the coins we used for cashless society now, but you understand what I'm saying. Why would you melt something down? Because you want to mold it, you want to reshape it, you want to create it the way you want it to look. Now, those are the two examples God has given us. So the crucible for silver and the furnace for gold, we're able to melt it down, and now we know that once it's been melted down, you can reshape it. And now God says, but the Lord tests the heart. So those are the two examples God has given us previously, and it's saying it's the same way how the Lord will test the heart. How the Lord can't melt us down. He can, of course, not melting, but the way He will do it is through the different tests that He puts in our life. So He's putting us through those tests so He can melt us, so He can mold us into the way that we're supposed to be. Have you ever noticed that every time you're tested, well, you should be learning from it, you learn something from it. Your mind might be renewed, you might understand how to overcome from certain situations again. Your tests that you go through in current day are preparing you for something you need next. And I can attest to that in my life. A lot of things that I've gone through previously are things that have helped me with situations I had later on. Stuff that I've gone through now, I know are things that will help me with things that happen in the future later on. I did a bit of research before I got into this video, and I actually went, see, this is how you know I love you guys. I even went down into understanding the Hebrew. Now, my pronunciation, I've never spoken Hebrew before, so if my pronunciation is wrong, please just allow me. Now, where it says, but the Lord tests the heart, test in Hebrew is bochen, so B-O-C-H-E-N. I think that's how you pronounce it, or bochen, one of the two. And essentially to examine, test, or prove. So it's more than just observing, it involves discerning what's true through pressure or trial. So like what I was saying about you going through your trials and tribulations, God applying pressure to your life. He wants to see, cool, even in the moment of when you're going through suffering, are you still going to praise Him? Because remember, the same God in the valley, same God on the mountain. Yeah, when you landed your job and you was on the mountain and you were singing God's praises, when the money's not coming in, it's the same God, you know. Like when you was praying for that job when you was in the valley, it's the same God that helped you get to that job, that got you that pay rise. It's the same God. Trust me, same God. In the Hebrew, heart is lavav, or L-E-V-A-V, and essentially it represents the inner self. So it's not just your heart, it's the feelings, the thoughts, the motives, your intention, because you know your heart is very complex. All the things I just listed, it's all your inner self. So He wants to test how you will be, so how you're thinking, how you're reacting, so your feelings, What's your intentions behind why you're doing certain things through this trial and tribulation? Do you get? Now, I'll give you guys an example here in the Bible where a man was tested. A man was tested. And I'll be honest, God knows to give certain people, you know how they say God gives everybody their own path, like this is their path for them. I 100% agree, because this one, God, I would have been scratching my head with this one, you know. So it's the story of Abraham, and this leads me to Genesis 22:1. So it says, sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham, here I am. Cool. Now, let me just break down this story. Essentially, Abraham was told that he was going to have a son. So he was told he's going to have a son. He got the promise, I think, from my notes, says when he was 75 years old. And this was said in Genesis 12:4 or 12:17. Then Isaac, his son, was born when Abraham was 100 years. So Abraham waited 25 years for this. God promised it to him when he was 75. He had to wait for 25 years before his promise came through. Now, what you do whilst you're going through this test is crucial. This is why previously I was talking about your intentions, your feelings, your thoughts, your motives whilst you're actually going through the test. Because I'm not gonna lie, Abraham, he jammed slyly, you know. He did jam. There was moments where he wasn't really trying to take matters into his own hands. So you know when you know you want something and maybe God has revealed you're gonna get something, you now think, okay, cool, I'm gonna do everything within my power to do it. Okay, cool, God promised me a house, I'm gonna apply for this, apply for that, apply for that, apply for that. I'm gonna do the madness just to get it. Trust me. Obviously, put in work, but God told you it's gonna come. Don't try and force it into your own hands and rush it, because that's the worst thing you can do. And I can attest for this. There's many things that I've rushed, and trust me, I was running backwards, facing forwards, not realizing that I was actually going backwards. Don't rush it. Of course, put the work in, guide your steps, ask God to keep guiding you, but always keep checking with God to make sure that what you're actually doing is the right thing. Because sometimes you think it's the right thing, but is it your intentions? Is it what you want, or is it what God's want? Do you get what Abraham did during the 25-year wait? Do you know what it is? 25 years. I don't know what I would do, you know. Because who was it that was promised or had to pursue his wife for 7 years? I don't know what I would have done during that time, you know. I'm just keeping it real. I don't know what I would have done during that time, but cool. During that 25-year wait between the promise and the fulfillment, Abraham struggled with doubt. He took matters into his own hands. So in this situation, he slept with a woman named Hagar, and then they had a son named Ishmael. Now, Ishmael, unfortunately, wasn't the son that, you know, God had promised him, because Hagar wasn't actually his wife. You know, because, quick backstory, Abraham and his wife were kind of struggling to have kids and whatnot, so he thought, okay, cool, let me try to have, you know, intercourse with another woman, see if I can get a child from her, He gets Ishmael, but Ishmael's not the son that's been promised. Isaac's the son that's been promised. So cool. This shows you that during your trials and your tribulations and your tests, don't even rush it. Don't make rash decisions, because honestly, it's not worth it. Yeah, it's not worth it at all. And then in the end, after all of that, after the 25-year wait, God finally gives him a son. Okay, cool. I want you to do this here. 25 years you waited. You tried to take matters into your own hands. God said, this is not the son that I had for you. Cool. 25th year, your wife is pregnant. Oh my gosh, excitement. Bridal shower. Get the balloons, get the cake, get the videographer, get the pictures, shout, get them all. Bring the congregation, let them know my wife is having my child. Cool. God now goes and tells you, this is why I'm saying I don't know what I would have done. God now goes and tells you to sacrifice said child who you waited 25 years for. When I tell you, my head would be banging, because imagine waiting 25 years for something and God says, okay, cool, give up. Now in this moment, Abraham don't know whether God is saying, okay, cool, we're just testing to see if you're gonna do it, or he actually meant sacrifice it. So in the scripture in Genesis 22:3, it says, early the next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. Now keep in mind, early the next morning, he wasn't dilly-dallying, he was straight away. Some of us, yeah, God will tell us to do something, we're there dilly-dallying. 1 day, 2 days, 7 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I'm talking to you and that business idea. So it was a bit too loud, but I'm talking to you. You see that business idea that's been sitting in your back pocket, or you've not even written it down, even worse. God just gave it to you and you're doing PIM because you're asking, how is it going to work? That's not for you to know. God says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts. Yeah, you see, when I started my businesses, even my boy David, I didn't know how this was going to make sense. But I said, God, you know what? You told me to do this, so you're going to make it bang some way, somehow. Because Jeremiah 29:11, for I have plans not to harm you. I forgot the rest right now, but not to harm you. Yeah, but to help you. Paraphrasing here. Be efficient is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, when God gives you that idea, go and do it, because God can go and give somebody else that idea down the road and they go and do it, and now that could have been you, but it's them because they decided to be obedient. Don't let that be you. Genesis 22:3. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. Now, you know what's mad with this? Burnt offering for your son. You're there walking up the mountain with your son. He's there collecting wood for the fire. He might have even been asking, okay, Dad, like, what are we sacrificing today? I don't see anything to sacrifice. Abraham's just there sighing, thinking, son, I'm not even trying to tell you the answer right now, man. I'm gonna have to do this to God. Now, in the end, Abraham actually follows through. Yes, so Genesis 22:11-12, it says, but the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham, here I am, he replied. Do not lay a hand on the boy, he said. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. That's kind of mad because he just dismissed Ishmael. So Ishmael wasn't dead. He had been sent away. So that explains why he wasn't there. But yeah, cool. So in Genesis 22, it said, cool, the angel has come and basically said to Abraham, cool, now we know that you fear God, we can trust you. Now, in even just that moment, there's a little lesson for you. Yeah? The reason God tests us is to see if he can trust us. Going back to the example I said about the 16-year-old one in the car. If they do their driving test and they now pass their test, I can trust you to drive. I can give you a car. It's the same way how God will give us a test. We pass the test. Okay, God knows we're ready for the next level. I'll use myself an example. There was moments when in my business I wasn't tithing. How can God give me more money if I'm not tithing? It doesn't make any sense. The little he's giving me, I wouldn't even give that. So how can he give me more? How can he trust me with more if I'm not going to give the little from what he's giving me now? As soon as I started tithing, I made more money. Promise you, true story. I started giving 10% and God said, okay, cool, I trust you. You've been doing this consistently. Here you go. And I kept giving the 10%. I kept doing it. I still tithe to this day and I will continue to tithe because that 10% is good. If God is giving me all this money, the least I can do to pay respects is give 10%. And in the grand scheme of things, 10%, honestly, you don't even notice that it goes. I promise you, you don't notice that it goes. But yeah. So in your life, think about the tests and the trials that you're going through. And in the moment, realize that, cool, God is testing me because he wants to see if he can trust me. Yeah, you trust God, but can God trust you? Because some of the things that he wants us to do, he has to know that we're going to be obedient to his word and do it regardless of how we feel. Abraham was told to sacrifice his son, his only son, that he waited 25 years for. And he went and he did it. And just as he was about to, the angel said no, because he knew that he fears God. Wait, there's one bit of this story I'm missing. I'm pretty sure there was an actual ox or sacrifice on the mountain. Yeah. So in the next part, in Genesis 22:13-14, it says, Abraham looked up, and there in a thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place, the Lord will provide, and to this day it is said, on the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. What we can take from this here is, we was about to sacrifice something that God didn't even want us to sacrifice. He just wanted to see if we trusted him enough. And then even then, there was already something there that he actually wanted to sacrifice. So Abraham's thinking he's going to sacrifice his son, and God's like, okay, cool, I trust you now. Here's an ox or a ram, and use that as a sacrifice. But what I want you guys to take away from this, and what I'm going to take away from this, is the reason why God tests us and gives us trials and tribulations is so that he can see that he can actually trust us. Also, it's for us to learn, because let's be real, if it didn't rain, would we enjoy the sun? If we weren't broke, would you really enjoy the money? Do you get? If we weren't sad, would we really enjoy happiness? You know, stuff that you learn during the process of your trial and your test is actually what makes you into the person who can sustain the blessing at the end of it. In the gym, you guys will go there, you start off skinny, fat, whatever shape you're in, you start off there, don't really know much, you don't really understand how to do certain things, you're a bit new, you're learning. Your test essentially is, if I'm doing bench press, can I get from 60 to 65 or 60 to 70? Yeah, so everything that you learned whilst you were trying to get to 70 kg from 60 kg was all the trials. So cool. How am I going to grip the bar? How do I do my technique? How am I going to progressively overload this so I can actually get to 70? How am I going to test out my 1 rep max, etc.? All of those things that you're learning during the test is everything that you're going to need once you actually get to that stage, so you can actually sustain what you have. Because God doesn't want to give us something and then we lose it and we can't sustain it. When God gives you something, it's yours to keep because you've been through the test. Actually, comment, subscribe, share with a friend, and if this resonated with you, please go pray about it and go ask God. I'm just delivering a message here. Yeah, I can't convert you, or I can't, you get me, purify you. That's not my job. What I'm doing is breaking down what's in here so you can understand and I can learn. That's it. But hope you enjoyed the video. Love.